Hello, this is Jill from Paper Daisy Crafting. Thank you very much for joining me today. This is number 10 of our card making for beginners course, where I've been introducing techniques and showing you some easy samples to make if you're a beginner that don't require too many resources. Today we're going to branch out a bit. So you will need resources to make this technique, but it is a technique that is absolutely fabulous and will take your crafting onto absolutely new levels. I can still remember about 30 years ago seeing somebody demonstrate this technique at a craft show, and I was just gobsmacked, and it just changed everything I did from then on. So I hope if you haven't seen it before, then you might be similarly impressed. It is, of course, heat embossing, and what that means is embossing means that you get a raised surface on your cardstock, and in order to achieve this, we do some heating of our cardstock, but we need to apply something to it first. So we're going to talk about that. So what will you need to do heat embossing? Well, you will need a Versamark pad, which is a sticky clear ink. We've talked about this before in our session about stamps, but it's a sticky clear ink, and what that means is that you stamp with it and then you sprinkle what's called embossing powder over it. This is a special plasticized powder that sticks to the sticky residue left by the Versamark and nowhere else, and then you heat the powder, and because it's plasticized, it melts under heat and it produces a lovely raised surface. So if I could just find something, I'm going to show you this. This is a card that will be appearing on my blog later this month. And can you see, can I catch, let me just see if that's catching in the light. Can you see the lovely, can't see this, I think you can see that, the lovely silver images there, and if I run my finger over it, I can feel that they're raised images. Really beautiful effects that you can get. Obviously I've done this in silver, but you can get other effects. So we're just going to have a look at how to do that today, and then in future I'll bring you some cards using that technique. So embossing powders, we have Stampin' Emboss powders in the catalogue. And we have 4 colours. We have gold, silver, clear and white. And the clear is especially useful because I'm going to show you how to use that to get any colour embossing that you want. So they come in these little pots, which are absolutely jam-packed full of powder. I always decant mine into other containers because it just makes it easier. So I decant them into these flat storage boxes that stack on top of each other. Mark the lid with the colour that that is in there, and that means that I don't get any mess. So if you're using the pots, which I did used to do, you will need to be sprinkling the powder and then trying to get the excess powder back into your little pot, and it becomes a very messy deal. So I'll show you in a minute how I use my storage containers, and they work very, very well. So we need embossing powder, we need a Versamark pad. The other 3 tools that you might need, the other essential is a heat gun. Now I have a very, very old heat gun. If you've watched my videos where I've heat embossed before, just lifting it off the ground here, you'll know that mine is very battered around. This is the heat gun that I bought originally 30 years ago when I saw heat embossing being demonstrated at that craft show. I couldn't wait to buy everything, so I bought everything that I could at this craft fair. So I bought the pad, the embossing powders. They weren't such good quality embossing powders as we have at Stampin' Up, I have to say. They were very coarse and didn't give you very detailed images, but I still thought it was marvellous. There's a heat gun in our catalogue. Can't remember the price at the minute. I think possibly about £20. But if it's like mine, it will stand you in good stead. And you can see I've bashed mine, it's cracked, but it's still going strong. It still works perfectly well, so I'm not worried about that. So you will need a heat gun. If this is a bit of an expense for you with your new hobby, I did just want to say that running up to Christmas, I always offer gift vouchers. So if this was something that you think you might like to buy in January, you could ask your other half or anyone who asks you what you want for Christmas for a Stampin' Up gift voucher, and then you'd be able to spend it on whatever good things you liked in the catalogue after Christmas. You can only redeem them via me. It's not a Stampin' Up offer. That's something that I offer. So what else might you need? So we've done the embossing powders. There are other colours from other makes available, so if you don't want those colours, you can buy other makes. But like I say, the ones that I bought initially, the gold was a very dull gold. It wasn't very shiny, and the others were very coarse powders, which didn't help to make a very detailed image. So do be careful, buy good quality ones. Versamark pad. The other two things is this. This is a little anti-static pouch. It's a little pouch that's full of powder that you swash over your cardstock before you put Versamark on, and it removes static, and it will also neutralise any sticky fingerprints so that the powder won't stick to those places on your card, because you don't want to get little specks of powder everywhere. You want a nice clear image. We used to sell these. This is my embossing buddy. That was a Stampin' Up one, and it's still going strong, but we don't sell them anymore. But I just had a quick look, and on Amazon, Woodware make an anti-static pad. So if you Google on Amazon a Woodware anti-static pad, on my Amazon it's coming up as £4.29, and that's all you need. That's what you need. If you don't want to buy one, you can always just sprinkle talcum powder over your cardstock. It's a bit more messy, but that will do the job just as well. And the other thing I always have in my embossing kit is a very fine paintbrush. This one's got a bit splayed actually, so I'm going to see if I can find after this video one with a bit more point, because I just like to use it to flick off little spray if there are any stray specks. A little paintbrush is really useful to get rid of those. So let's see how we do it. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use the same stamp. I'm going to use a Merry Christmas message stamp, because if I make some lovely embossed messages today, I will always be able to use them on my cards. So I think we'll start off with silver. Just looking for my cardstock that I cut before I came on camera and now can't find. Oh, here it is. So I've got some strips of okay. I'm just going to clean this stamp because I've just been doing something else with this, which I'll show you in a minute. So let's just clean my stamp off. We start with a clean stamp. And you can do this with red rubber or clear stamps, doesn't matter, it works with both. Like I say, it will take your crafting to the next level. So I'm going to take my embossing buddy, my anti-static pad, and swish it across, and that will just take any static or sticky fingerprints that was on there off. I'm then going to take my stamp and ink it up with Versamark. Like I say, this is a very sticky ink. The problem with our coloured stamp pads is they are water-based inks, and they don't stay wet for long enough for you to be able to get the Versamark onto them and stick, and then to heat emboss them. So you need a sticky ink. You need a pigment ink or a Versamark ink. Pigment inks can work quite well because they're much slower drying. And then I'm going to stamp this with my Versamark, and the problem with Versamark is that you can't actually see where it is. So like I've said before, I do have one that I've coloured with a little bit of grey, with a little bit of smoky slate, so I can see it, but this is fine for today. Right, let's do gold first. Okay, so I've got my box with my gold powder, and you'll see what I mean about being less messy doing this. So I've got my gold powder in there. I can switch my card in there and get the powder all over my image, and then it just drops back in there without any mess. Now you can see where I've been holding, there's a slight speck there, and there's also a slight speck there, so that's where my paintbrush comes in. This has got a little thread in it, so that will just brush that away, and there's a tiny speck there, so I can just get rid of any specks that I don't want before I heat emboss. And then you need to bring in your heat gun. Now what I tend to do, or try to do if I remember, is heat my heat gun up a little bit first. So I just turn it on, point it away, because otherwise what happens is blowing cold air, if you put it on here, it might start blowing the powder away. Just bear in mind, this is not a hairdryer, it's much, much hotter than a hairdryer. And so what happens is, once it's warmed up, you focus it on your stamping, and you need to watch like a hawk for when it begins to change, because if you heat too much, the powder will heat too much and it will melt too much and go into the card and be a flat, dull image. So that's there, and I hope you can see that. Can you see how what a beautiful embossed gold image that is. Really, really beautiful. Now, I need to tell you a story. Actually, I was fibbing when I said I bought the heat gun at that craft fair, because I just remembered I didn't buy it there. I bought it later. What I did do, and what he demonstrated at the craft show, was that you can actually do this over your toaster. So if you don't have a heat gun, you can turn your toaster on, hold your cardstock over it, and the heat from the toaster will eventually, it's not terribly quick, but it will eventually melt so that's another way to do it if you don't have a heat gun. Like I say, a hairdryer won't work, so please don't try it with a hairdryer. This is a different tool altogether. So that's gold, so that's lovely, and it's especially lovely for Christmas cards and Christmas greetings on your cards. Right, let's try with silver then. So same process. Anti-static pad to get rid of any static. Versamark pad. Ink up your stamp. Nice clear image. And then take your silver embossing powder. And so again, knock that to there, get this over here. So again, very mess free. And I'm just flicking it to get any excess powder off there. There we go. And then again, heat. So this is already warm, so I don't need to do it to one side very much. So I can bring that in. You'll find if you're doing it too close to your fingers, you may get burnt fingers. So you may need to hold your card in tweezers or something. It depends on the size of card. So I'm now going to turn that round so I'm not quite so close to my fingers, because my fingers are getting a bit warm. And there we go. Isn't that beautiful? So those are the two metallic powders that we do, the gold and the silver. And I have to say that even when we've had other metallics in the catalogue, we had copper for a while, and I've had others, but actually gold and silver is what I always go back to. They're the sort of what do I want to say? They're the ones I always use. Can't remember the word. There we go. Right, now then. Do always remember to put the lid back on your embossing powder, and do always remember that if it's in the middle of summer, don't try and emboss when you've got your fan on. I found out to my cost this summer when I had my fan on and I was videoing, and my whole room ended up covered in embossing powder, which is really gritty and really horrible. It was not a nice experience at all. Right, now we're going to do white embossing. Now obviously, if I emboss white onto white card, that's going to be very difficult to see. There is a technique by which you can emboss white on white card and then colour over it, and the white embossed part will stay uncoloured, will stay white, and you get a very nice effect. But that's a technique for another day. Today what we're going to do is we're going to emboss white on coloured card. So I've chosen a piece of gorgeous grape here. So once again, even on coloured card, we need to use our embossing buddy. I don't know if you can see that. If I tap it, you can see a little bit of powder coming out there. And then again, same stamp. And stamp. And then with our white powder. Just in case you're interested, I've got 2 pots of embossing powder in each of these containers, because otherwise it was a bit scarce. So I've got plenty of embossing powder in here. And you can see that the powder, you need to be very careful. I'm just going to put the lid on there and follow my own instructions. You just need to be very careful that you get all the little specks off. So there's not many really, but I want it to be perfect. I don't want to have these odd little white specks. There we go. And if I show you, this gives you a really lovely effect, white on coloured card. Again, you need to watch it and keep it in the light so that you can see when it actually starts turning, because you don't want to overheat. Like I say, if you overheat it, the powder will heat up too much and then will sink back into the card, and you'll get a very dull, flat image, which is not what we're looking for. So look, how beautiful is that? Lovely. Let's Can you see that? I hope you can see the shine. And if I run my finger over it, it's dry. It's okay already. It's quite warm, but it's set. And it's a bumpy image, so that's really nice. Okay, and then the last technique I'm going to show you today is with the clear embossing powder. And what I'm going to do here is take another piece of white card, and this time I'm going to use a coloured ink. So this technique means that you can have embossed images in whatever colour you like. So what you do is you ink your stamp with Versamark first, and you need to do it this way round. So you ink with Versamark first. That will give you the clear sticky ink that you need, and then you ink with your colour and then stamp. Oh, beautiful. And then come in with your clear embossing powder. And now, because we've used the Versamark, that will stay wet and sticky for a little while. To grab your clear embossing powder. Do still need to work relatively quickly, so don't leave it for ages before you try and put the embossing powder on. Just going to close my ink pad here. And then you can heat this. So like I say, you can use this method with any of your coloured ink pads. And so you can have embossed images in any colour that you like, which is really great. There we go, it's just going. Can you see how lovely Bermuda Bay embossed image? There we are. So we've got white, clear, made to make a coloured image, and gold and silver. So I hope you've enjoyed watching about heat embossing. I was just aware that sometimes I do heat embossing on my cards, but I don't ever stop to explain terribly well, so I thought it would be quite nice to have a reference video for you to watch and see all the technicalities of using embossing powders and heat embossing. It really is a beautiful technique and will make your cards look a lot more professional, and just take them to another level, like I say. So I know there's a bit of investment there. So like the heat gun and the Versamark and a pot of powder, probably going to set you back about £30. And then if you wanted to buy an embossing buddy as well, or a anti-static pad, but I mean, they will last you forever. I mean, I bought these embossing powders and the Versamark when I first started with Stampin' Up, which was 2016, and I'm still using them. I haven't had to reinvest or anything, so they will last you forever. So I hope you've enjoyed that, and I was just going to show you a couple of sneak peek examples where I've used quite a lot of heat embossing on my cards. This is the one I showed you earlier with the embossed Christmas trees. These are from Triangle, which is a set in the new mini Christmas catalogue, and I've used Feels Like Frost paper behind there, so it's all white and silver, which I think always gives a very classy image to a Christmas card. Quite like that, quite like these trees stamped. And then I've used the same trees on this one. There'll be a video coming out on this on the 1st of September, because this is my card for Stamp Around UK. So you're just getting a sneaky look at it first of all. And I've embossed white on Balmy Blue, Coastal Cabana, Pacific Point, Bermuda Bay and Pool Party on there. So a whole range of different colours with that white embossing powder. But I think it looks lovely. So I hope you've enjoyed my little video today, and I hope you might give heat embossing a chance. Give it a go. If you have any problems, don't forget to get in touch. I'm always happy to answer any questions or help people out if they're having problems. If you want to buy any of the products, of course, they'll be available in my shop, which will be linked down below the video. Or if not, there'll be a link to my blog, and on my blog post there will be links to each product at the bottom of the blog post, so that you can go straight through to that product in my shop. So hope you've enjoyed that, and I will see you again soon, and I will see you next week again for another instalment of our card making for beginners. Thanks very much for watching today, and I hope you have a nice day. Bye for now.